So we are so happy that you're back with us to see this mess that we created. We had a tool hanging board here, and we were basically trying not to, break into the concrete here in any way. So we were using Velcro with pretty strong glue on it, but it did end up coming off. So we put some other glue on it, which you saw in a previous video, and now we're going to finish this project by hanging.
We're hoping it stays because we can see where
everything stays.
By the way, I didn't drool on myself. I spilt something on me, and then I sponged it off. He was like, "Do I look okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think you're fine compared to me. You're looking awesome."
All right.
Do you need this out of the way?
I don't think so. I think it fits in there because that was sitting there the way it was. So. All right, let's get this thing. We want to go about right here. This side. All right.
It's that middle one that's tricky.
Right. I just need to get one of these started. I think I went too high. Oh. Can you give me a hand? Just kind of, well, you don't have, just hold it up. You don't need to press, actually. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab a mallet here and a piece of wood. Probably a good idea. Where's the wood? Let me get here's a piece. Okay. Now I'm just going to give this a little press to get it up to the wall, right? Now you can let go to your side. That looks fairly even across there. Alright, both of those are holding really well. Now let's do our middle piece. Now it doesn't have it all the way through.
Right,
it has
it's all the way up.
Towards the bottom. Yeah. Still going to have a little freedom there because there's no connection here. I mean, that seems, not that I want to go hanging off of it.
You're going to hang your stuff on it?
Yep. Okay. So the big test will be this first. Right. So this we fill with all kinds of bolts and screws and everything else. Right. These top doors out. That I can see better. And there we go. That's great. Pins. There. Alright, now we're going to put all our hangers back up. Alright, I think that's it, dear.
Alright.
Alright, so it's back on the wall. We will come back in 20 or 30 minutes and see if it's still back on the wall. What are you doing?
Getting chairs.
Oh.
What are you doing? I forgot my coffee in there.
What's it look like?
I'm gonna bring my sweet little tomato inside.
So which ones are we bringing out?
The onions and the sweet cherry peppers. Hot cherry peppers.
Yeah.
Look, if you've been around here, this is my first Roma without end rot. I don't even know why. That's what's sad. I don't know what went right for this one.
Alright,
So I filled some of these like halfway
right,
with
you've got
sticks
sticks
and
and
pine
stuff.
cones.
So what I'm hoping to do is we have topsoil, we also have potting soil.
Yeah.
Potting soil has nitrogen,
Feel free to speak up.
soluble potash, and I can't remember the other one. Anyway, I'll look it up on the back. But it has stuff in it to feed the plants. Topsoil doesn't. It's got nothing
Right.
in it. So what I was going to do was dump that one into the bucket, and then dump some of this in there and mix the two together.
Yeah.
Put them in
this
there.
was like $4.99.
Right. And this was obviously
Cheap,
a bit
but
more.
it's
yeah,
better.
It's cheap, but it was better. So then we can take that, fill it in these three, and decide which
Right.
plants to go. So you have over there red onions.
Yep.
And then this is 6 peppers, right?
Yep, cherry hot.
So let's talk about which pots we want to put these in. Do we want to put 3 peppers in the little ones and move the onions to this one? Because you need some depth like this for the red onion.
Oh, sure. I wasn't thinking of that. Yep.
The peppers don't need the depth, to like the fruit doesn't come on the bottom, so, right?
And then this I kind of want to keep in this little pot, like this guy,
Okay.
my little spider.
Yeah, let me grab the red stuff.
He's not like, he's not rooting, but. And so that food you bought is for after they've like established themselves.
Right, so this is tomato and vegetable, which basically means you're going to reduce the nitrogen. Not a lot, but you're going to reduce it some. Elevate the phosphate, and the soluble potash is going to be a little higher as well. So what they tell you is the first two are important. The nitrogen and the... Why am I having such a hard time remembering that? The phosphate, okay?
Yeah.
So the nitrogen is for your leaves and your stems and roots to basically get grounded. So this potting soil is high in nitrogen, okay? The phosphate is more for the fruiting. Once it gets to the flowering, you shift over to having higher on the phosphate so that your plant will produce the fruit, right? The soluble potash, it's a little bit of both, but it kind of helps to keep your pH balanced, I believe, is what that's used for in the two. So you will see 3 numbers on nutrients that you buy all the time. You'll see some are low, they might have 4, 5, 4, some. This one's very interesting. It has 18, 18, 21, that's pretty high, which means you don't need a lot of this stuff necessarily. What we were talking about is putting it in when we water to help give basically some nutrients to the plant when we do it. But there's also nutrients in the soil to get it started. So potting soil is high in nitrogen to give you the roots and the leaves, get them going. It's not going to help it necessarily flower and fruit. So just remember that. You want to switch and lower the nitrogen, right, up the phosphate when you want to get to the point where the plant should be flowering and fruiting.
I was
right.
freeing a spider over here.
Yeah. So
There was
we
a
had some of
spider
this in
living
this
here.
bag. Is this the worm stuff?
No, it's just extra potting soil I have.
Okay. So
That's
we need
like
to get
from
this
last
out.
year, so I would love it if you would throw that in there.
Okay.
Who knows how depleted it is.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm going to dump this in here. Okay. And give your plastic shovel. These are really cool.
Yeah, I got that at like the
Simple.
dollar store for the, like kids for the same, but it's not sharp. You might hear. You could stab it with this.
True. I can.
Oh, wrong way.
There we go. Okay. Just open this up a bit. I don't need to like go crazy with it. But... So if you're wondering how to open a bag, I did this years ago when I was I used to work for a landscaper.
Oh, really?
And they would tell you to do this because you can just pull the two sides together, and now you can
If you're strong enough.
dig out of there.
Oh, you dig
Right.
out of there.
Yeah. So I put this back in, right?
Yeah.
I may have to go get the big shovel to mix this appropriately. But... So now I can take half of this bag, right? Get it in here. And it's pretty easy to do this because now I've cut it that way, right? I'm not like dumping it all over the yard. So I don't mind saying, years ago I used to work for a landscaper, Eric Mondine. If you see Eric, say hi to him.
Yeah.
He used to live over in New Hampshire, do a lot of work in the Exeter area.
Actually, I went to high school with him. Do you know that?
No, not Eric. I'm sorry. Not Eric Mondine. Eric, we used to do construction together.
Right.
The person that I did landscaping with was Hernandez. Eric Hernandez. Different guy. Both great people.
I'm sure there's only one in the world.
Probably only one, yeah. Who's a landscaper in New Hampshire?
That's like when people see I'm from Maine, they'll say, "Oh, Billy Smith lives in Maine. Do you know him?" It's like, no, it's not that small.
He's a great softball player, too. Anyway,
Which one?
both of them were.
Oh.
Eric was a great infielder. Eric Mondine.
So
Eric Hernandez
I put the
was
pine.
outfielder.
Look how I put the pine against the house. The pine spills.
Uh-huh.
Now look behind you. I'm gonna show them later in the camera. Look behind you against the house, and look. That's where I didn't do pine.
Yeah, so you're seeing more stuff coming up.
Tons of stuff and barely anything over here.
That's true.
So it does make a great mulch. Pine straw.
Alright, so I got this mixed up pretty good. Alright. I could probably mix more in there, but I don't get it started anyway, so I'm gonna put in our big
I like
pot.
my role here, just drinking my coffee.
Well, you know, I think
thismainermom right here.
you are the foreman.
I'm the
Right,
foreman.
As I come to make decisions, you
Looks like
you
him.
give the final word, right?
Really? I love how I got that recorded. Are you sure that's not too much?
No, that's not enough.
Thought it was
I gotta
the
go a
foreman.
little bit more. That's gonna settle down. You might even want to shake it a little bit because it's gonna settle, and you want it to settle a little bit so that it'll hold the plant, right?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, we're good with that. Yep. Get these going. So this is working out a good way to work out of this bucket. Now, some people say to put the plant in, right, and dump around it or whatever. I don't think it makes a difference. The most important thing is to make a small well around the roots of what's already growing and water them and keep track of them for the first 10 days. After that, you do what we would think of as regular watering, you just see doesn't need water. The first 10 days help it attach its roots to its new environment. You and I have had that conversation many times. All right, we're good. So this one's getting the
onions.
onions.
But just like try to avoid this little bag.
We pretty much have two
I'm gonna
onions
give him
there, right?
more soil when we get the onions out. Actually, you know what? Give me that for a sec. Put him over here. He doesn't really attach himself anyway, see?
Right.
So those are two different plants.
I'm just going to separate these two because remember, this is a rooted plant. Like
So this is red onion.
Right, you're trying to get onions out.
We waited way too long.
But I think we'll be all right if we can get these down in here a bit. Right? We do want to stand them up a bit. Okay, like I said, you want to make a little bit of a well around the edge of him for the first few days. This one the same. Right? Alright. So, these are red onions, and if you know, because I'm not sure, I don't know whether my wife knows, whether you can eat the greens from the top of the red onion. Alright. If you know,
look it up. Google would know.
Let us know. Well, we could look it up, but you also have a whole bunch of people who
yeah.
can help you and tell you.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody eating red onion greens? That would be impressive. All right, let me see the other plant there. Right, these are peppers.
Yeah, some of them are already flowering.
Yeah. So this is called cherry hot pepper. I'll put it there so you can mark it and see it. She'll probably blow it up. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this off. We're going 3 of these, right? Which, this might not give you enough space. We might want to do no more than 2 and try to get another pot. Do you have another small pot like this around the corner? I think you do by the ladder. Yeah. I think these are going to take up more space than we expected.
I got these. Do you have these? Or do you want that big red one?
That one will do.
Or there are some inside? Are there some in my office?
I could do each one of those. I could do one in each of those.
Yep.
Then we can test whether putting them together is better than having them apart.
Right. Let me just check mine.
You know? Grab me a couple of... What are you putting in the bottom of these days?
Pine cones.
All right, I'll get a
branches.
few.
Go over to that wheelbarrow, too.
Hey, I put a few
I do also
just
have
fillers
those.
in the bottom of the others. Yep. And now I'll fill these up.
We're going to have to...
What?
We're going to have to buy something for this. Look.
Yeah, we have a big pot.
Pot with nothing to put in it.
There's always something to put in a pot.
I actually have some marigold seeds inside. I could plant.
We did good with this mixture, though. We used all our topsoil doing that.
Yeah.
And most of that, well, we did about half of the potting soil. So. Okay. Might be able to put a little bit more in that one. Yes.
So are these going on the deck?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a good place for them for the moment. I mean, you have till late October. Most of this should grow. And
I wasn't worried about that. I just knew you wanted to test things inside, so I thought.
If we do inside, I would like to take these individual too, maybe, and put them in, see how they do. That might be the best test, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
Doesn't matter to me.
Listen, foreman can't say it doesn't matter to me.
I would take, that one's flowering, so it's just, well, it flowered inside.
That's true. It did flower inside.
Let me go get a pot of water.
Yeah, these all have to be watered, especially the onions.
Right.
They're going to need a good amount.
As you can see, we barely have a place to sit now, but I gotta tell you, when things are growing, it's kind of addictive. Leo's made friends with the pepper plants. Huh, Leo? And then this is a little succulent we got at a library book sale. It's like $1. And then this is one of my little spider plant offshoots. I'm seeing if planting it in dirt is better, and I have more outside, and I thought I might put a couple here. Because I had these in water, and they're not dying or anything, but they're not rooting either. So I'm kind of letting it go dry, but tell me, how long should it take? Is there something I should be doing? Yeah, I don't know. You mean this one, right?
Yep, I do. See the bottom of it?
Oh, yeah.
It's starting to look gangly.
Yeah.
So let's just snip that.
Beautiful.
That is a beautiful pepper.
Then there's another one that's coming in.
Yep. Hey there. So we're making beef chili casserole. This is very much like a traditional American dish that's called stuffed peppers, which is more on the Italian end of things. This actually is a Latino version of that, I would say. It's called baked beef chilies rellenos casserole. So a true relleno is a poblano pepper. Usually it's stuffed, and then there's like a batter that's dipped on the outside of it, and it's deep fried. So if you asked for like chiles rellenos, you would get this stuffed pepper that's fried. This is a casserole version of that, so you're not actually going to deep fry anything, but you're stuffing the peppers. So first thing I have is a bunch of poblano peppers. We're not really going to make this as big as it could. You can make this with 15 peppers, 4 peppers, so it can be various sizes is what you're doing, but wonderful, beautiful poblano peppers. These are not overly spicy. They don't have a lot of heat or anything like that. They just have a nice flavor to them, which interestingly enough is a lot like when you do a stuffed pepper casserole. So we're going to start with those, and I have a list for this recipe. 14 different items on here. So the next thing is you need some ground beef. In this case, it calls for 1.5 pounds. 1 tablespoon of chili powder, which we have here, chili powder. 2 cloves of minced garlic. We got some garlic here, which is promise. 1 teaspoon of ground cumin. 1 teaspoon of dried oregano. So I have my cumin here, and the oregano is here as well. So we got both of those. And we're going to move on. Now, it calls for cayenne pepper. If you're not somebody who can tolerate, like my wife is somewhat allergic to cayenne pepper.
Totally. You don't even want to know.
Yeah. It's
you
bad.
don't want to know.
We've been to restaurants where
nasty.
they did not identify it, and it was
nasty.
troublesome. So anyway, I'm going to use a guajillo chili, which she's not allergic to, which has a little bit of spice, but very little. So I'm going to use a little guajillo chili pepper. I also have, and I love this because it calls for chipotle pepper, 1/4 teaspoon. I have chipotle with bacon flavor, which they had at our local store, and I thought, well, there you go. If you just want to add some bacon to it, throw that in. So we also have some paprika we're going to do. And when you get down here a little bit further, we're going to put in 1 onion. We went to the farmer's market this week. Now, we've had this in the refrigerator, so this is a little wet at the moment, but wonderful red onions at the farmer's market here in the town where we live. So we're going to have that. We have 2 cans of diced tomatoes. Now, it calls for diced tomatoes with green chili peppers. We just got this out of the garden today. I am going to cut this, saute this, add it with these, and it'll be basically the same thing as having the tomatoes with green chili pepper. So
I'm making Mexican rice to go with this, but I've already done this on the channel, so if you're wondering why I keep coming and stealing his spices, that's why.
That's right.
I'm just going to get them
She's
all together.
making some Mexican rice.
But usually on the channel I put beans in it because it was what the girls were going to eat for the meal, my younger 2. Let's see, I can have 4 teaspoons. But I'm just going to make it without the beans today.
The last thing in our casserole is some shredded cheese. You can use whatever kind you like. This calls for shredded Mexican cheese blend, so we had that at the store. We did that. There's some really wonderful cheeses that come from Mexico and the Tex-Mex type of cooking in general, and I would encourage you to try little bits of them. One of the things that you'll notice, some can be very salty, and a lot of that has to do with the way the cheese is processed and kept, and also if you're in a very warm environment and you're trying to save things that that have milk in them and you don't want them to spoil, you'll tend to see that things have more salt in them. But they're really, really flavorful. If you've ever had Mexican street corn, you have that type of cheese on it. It's just absolutely wonderful. So anyway, I'm going to get into making this, and there's going to be one twist here. So I've made this before, and we liked it. It was very good. But this time I'm also going to add some ricotta cheese. Now, if you're familiar with the American stuffed pepper version, that you often might put ricotta cheese in there. So I'm going to add a little bit to each pepper that we do and stuff. But the first thing I need to do is clean up these peppers, get them cut in half, and you lightly roast them in the oven to begin with. So I'm going to get that started. And the temperature for that, let me see here. It says in your broiler, so I'm assuming that we're going to put it on broil.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to broil these peppers. It says to position the rack about 6 inches from the heat source. I'm not going to put it too high, but I'll put it up a little bit. And it takes approximately 5 to 8 minutes to broil.
That looks right.
But yeah, yep, that'll be good. All right, so what we do is we broil these peppers, which will bubble up the skin. We'll take the skin off, and then the pepper will be used in the recipe itself. All right, so we're going to prepare these peppers to get them roasted. I have put some tin foil on a sheet. Nothing big going on there. Basically, you're preheating the broiler. The rack's going to be about 6 inches from the heat. Line the baking sheet with aluminum foil. Arrange halved poblano. So you're supposed to half these, okay? And you're going to broil them cut side down till their skins blacken and blister, approximately 5 to 8 minutes. You're going to put the peppers in a bowl and then cover them with plastic so they'll continue to steam. At that point, we'll work on the hamburguesa.
Hamburguesa.
All right, so I'm going to half this one. Okay, it tells you to get the seeds and stuff out of there, so I'm going to do that. De-seed this. One thing I learned the last time is these peppers are going to become pretty floppy, almost, very movable. I want to keep them as intact as I can so that I have a good foundation for when I stuff them, right? So I don't want them to get shredded. So you do want to be careful when you're cutting and seeding and everything that you actually have a good, solid pepper like this. You don't want it like shredded or half cut or anything like that. So, okay. So keep that in mind when you're doing it, is to try to get a good cut when you're doing it. Like I said, then get your seeds out of them. Don't forget to take the stems off. Also be sure to wash them. Took care of that earlier. I'm sure there are much faster ways to do this, but like I said, I learned the first time I want to have a good solid pepper skin when I get done with this. I do not want it to be shredded, so I'm trying to keep that in mind. It's tricky because the temptation is to just go carving up the inside of it, and that's kind of what I did the last time. I was probably a little bit more like the Butcher of Lyon the last time, and that was bad. So this time I'm trying to be a little bit more careful. Still getting the seeds and things out of them. As far as the seeds go, I mean, for a lot of people, the seed on a poblano is not a spicy seed. So I wouldn't be worried that if I leave the seeds on, I'm going to get this massive mouthful of spice. But just a lot of people don't necessarily want to bite into a seed when they're having their dish. So that's more about why you're getting them out of a poblano. Sometimes it's really good to keep the seeds, in some cases, depending on what you want. On other peppers, some people believe that the more seeds you add, the more heat it gets, and that seems to be fairly true because a lot of the spice is in the grinding up of the seeds. After you've either boiled them or roasted them or anything like that, and you put it into a sauce, if you put the seeds in and you put that in with it, you're going to get spicier dish. So, I am not doing that here, and it wouldn't matter anyway because poblano is not a hot pepper. You can see I'm not even wearing gloves. If this was some kind of a pepper that had a very strong heat to it, I would put something on my hands to protect myself, because it's really not about protecting your hands. It's about when you go to put your hand on your eye or something else, that's when it becomes really dangerous. Years ago on the way home from work, I stopped in and bought these little peppers, and I thought, oh, those are beautiful, just these little peppers. I didn't realize that I had bought habaneros, and I got home and I cut it up, and I was putting habanero with rice, and I cut up an entire habanero, put it in the rice, and then I was like touching my face for some reason, rubbed an eye or rubbed my upper lip, and my whole face started to react with the heat of it. And I vividly remember that it was a good 2.5 hours before my face was back to normal. So always be careful anytime you're working with spicy peppers. These are not. These are ready to go, though. I'm going to broil them. Remember, it's 5 to 8 minutes. I'm really just broiling these to blacken the skin. I'll peel that off. Then we'll have the hamburger mixture with the spices that will actually stuff these when we put it into the casserole. Into the oven we go. In preparation for when they come out, I just take this bowl, because what I'm going to do is put those peppers in here just like the recipe says. Cover it with plastic wrap, and that will steam them some more. Then I will likely get a paper towel and rubber gloves, and that will help me take the skins off of the poblanos as well. So, out come the peppers. There you go. Here it is. You can see how those are toasted, right? We're going to peel those skins off and then stuff that pepper. So I remember over here I have the big dish I'm going to put them in and cover them with plastic. Right? In the meantime, we're also working here with a pan. We're going to start the filling that we're using. Okay, so here we have our frying pan, and we're going to just add a little bit of oil. We're going to start with our filling. Not a lot of oil there, just a little bit. I'll let it move around just a hair. Get it on there. First thing I'm going to start with is, you remember we were supposed to use cans of tomatoes that had green chilies in them, but we weren't going to do that. We're going to use one of the peppers from our garden for the green chilies and then have regular canned tomatoes. So there's the green chili going in. I want to make sure that that has a good cook where it's kind of at least a little soft before I then start with the hamburger. It's cooking up very nicely. Get out a spatula here, back together. Just let it cook up. That's softened up a bit. Now we'll get the hamburger in there. Now, I don't know what you do, but typically I like to make sure that the ground beef is split up. I don't really like the ground beef where it has lines like this, where you've got like straws of it. So I like to make sure that I'm frying it up. The recipe says this will take about 4 minutes to get it going. But while I'm doing that, I'm also supposed to add the spices that I have, right? So I have lined up behind me each of the spices that I'm supposed to add. So let me do that. First one that I have is chili powder. So the chili powder, it said basically 1 tablespoon. I'm actually not making the full recipe, so I'm going to cut this back just a hair. All right? So I'm putting about 2 teaspoons, which is a little less than a tablespoon. After the chili powder, putting in some of the minced garlic. And on the minced garlic, so 2 cloves, usually you put a decent amount of that in there. I'll put, just a couple of teaspoons in there. People have varying opinions about the garlic themselves, what they want to put in there, what they don't want to put in there. We, over the years, I maybe built up more of a tolerance towards more garlic rather than less garlic. So anyway, that's why I'm mentioning that. I'm going to keep trying to mince this up a little bit. The beef turned around. So that's the garlic portion. Now, we're supposed to have cumin and an oregano. So each of these were the lids off as well. Get a teaspoon back here. Alright, so this is the cumin, right, and oregano. If you remember when we did the, it said cayenne pepper, and cayenne was about 1/4 teaspoon. This is guajillo pepper. I'm going to use a very small amount of this, right? Say about that much. That's it. It'll add a nice red color too. Guajillo peppers, very red-ish color. It's very nice. So this calls for 1/4 teaspoon. Again, I'm just going to take what they're saying, very small amount, put that in. Now we're going to get out the chipotle seasoning with bacon. This also was 1/4, right? So just a little bit of it, not a lot. Put that in as well. Very nice smell that comes off of that. I'm going to mix this up and get it going, because the next thing we're going to do is add the onions and the tomatoes, the crushed tomatoes to this stuff. You want your spices to get a nice heat here, kind of meld in with some of the beef juice. Now we tend to use a very low-fat ground beef, and so we don't end up getting a lot of the juices like you might see, but you'll see a lot more juice coming off of something that has a different type of ground beef. So but we'll get there. Try to get this nice into small pieces because we don't really want, like I said, hamburger that looks like lines. Right? So after we grind this up, on the list, we got some onions coming. And do that. The recipe says to add the onions. This is the red onion we cut up. Put that in there. It also says it takes about 2 minutes. I'm going to put a timer on just because I want to make sure that I do this exactly the way they said and get that onion nice and tender before it goes into the casserole, right? Now sometimes if you can see that your pan's a little hot, like mine's probably a little hotter than it should be, and you start to see things bunching up, sort of sticking a little bit, one thing you can do is if you add a little bit of water, it helps to deglaze the pan some, so I'm going to add just a little bit. I have to add a lot of this, but just a small amount. Right? So that was probably a little less than 2 tablespoons of water. Right? That just helps that come off, you know, kind of mix up. You can see now you're getting more of the juice that way. So I got my timer on. I'm in my 2nd minute of my onion here. Like I said, it indicated, 2 minutes is about what you want with just the onions in here. Now we're going to come in with our cans of tomato. So like I said, this recipe calls for 1.5 pounds of ground beef. I'm really only using about 1 pound, so we're kind of doing 2/3 of the recipe. It calls for 2 cans of tomatoes, and my 2 minutes is up with my onions, which is good. That beep went off. So now I can add in my cans of tomato, and like I said, I'm doing a little less than what the recipe calls for. So I'm actually not going to put all of my 2nd can in there. I'm going to save some of it. Okay? Because I don't want to overdo the tomatoes in this either, since I'm doing it as a smaller batch of the casserole. So we're doing about 2/3 of what the actual recipe is for us, because we don't have as many people to feed tonight. So there we go. So this says once you do that, you put the tomatoes in here, you let all of that come together. This is going to take about 5 minutes for all of this to cook up nicely. Right? Pull that all together. You can see over here the Mexican rice has come together. That's nice and done. I'm going to pull that back a little bit, put it over there. Alright, let me check one more thing as to whether they said cover or not. So I am going to, this has been already about 1 minute, I'm going to put a 4 minute on. I'm just going to let this go for 4 minutes, just cooking together. Alright, and again, this is our filling for the peppers. So we still have the filling, we've got the Mexican cheese. We're going to be laying this down in the pan that we're using, base. Fill the peppers, put some more, another layer. We'll try to layer it a little bit and add the cheese on as well, and then that will go into the oven, which is already preheated. So now we're going to take the skins off of these peppers. Let me correct that. Bump this a little bit. Turn it back this way for you. There you go. We are going to clean these peppers off so we can put them in our casserole dish. So, like I said, it took about 10 minutes to kind of steam them off. So now we bring them out. It still has the, darkened part on it. But when you go to peel these, they come off pretty easily. It can be a little bit difficult sometimes, but you notice it does, kind of coming right off. Not too much difficulty. Some people will advise to take a paper towel, right? Because paper towels, for some reason, can provide a little bit more grip to the skin to pull it off. It's almost like a sandpaper approach, I guess. but you'll notice that it does work. So we're just trying to get the peel off of there. And by the way, I don't think there's any particular reason why you would have to take the skin off. I think it's just that some people don't like to eat the skin, or there could be a little bit more of a bitter flavor. But obviously in this case, we toasted them pretty heavily, right? You wouldn't necessarily want a burnt flavor in what you're doing, but basically you want it to basically look like that. It's, you know, gotten the skin off. That's really what you're working for. I can just lay that in there. The next one, some of these will come off better than that one did. That one still had very dark, but you can see this one comes off really easily, right? It's not hard to do this. Just takes a little bit extra preparation. Take off that skin. Right? And these come out really nice. It's a very layered casserole. So you have the filling, the peppers, the cheese, the filling, the peppers, the cheese. It's just a very nice. It's charred up really nice. But you can see, if I had gone off with my knife, I wouldn't end up with nice pieces of pepper like that. That's why you have to be careful when you start the first part, when you're cutting them up, is to be careful to cut exactly the way you want to so you get nice halves to work with. Alright, I'm going to start putting these together. I'm going to put this back out here. A few of those. I'm going to lay them out the way you would maybe sliced deli meat. So you've got them laid out and you can see them. Get your casserole dish together. Again, I'm not making this as big as you could. You can make them, 9.5 by 12 and bigger. Just do more poblanos, more of the seasoning and the sauce. That'll come out great. What I do want to do is start with a bit of a bed of the sauce, the filling on the bottom, right, to do the casserole. So we can, I'm pretty sure we have a place where we can direct you to the full recipe here, but basically what they're indicating in the recipe is layer the bottom of the dish with some of the peppers, then top with 1/3 of the beef mixture. Allow 1 cup of shredded Mexican cheese blend. Repeat these layers 2 more times. So they're talking about 3 layers, okay? I'm not going to start with the peppers on the bottom. I'm actually going to start with the mixture on the bottom because I've done this before and I feel like that adds a good base before you start adding the peppers. Now, one thing they did say was that each layer is going to be about 1 cup of the cheese. So I'm going to get a cup so I can measure that. So I'll put that over here, that way I can measure each one of these. And if you also remember, we're doing this slightly different. We're doing this slightly different because we are also going to add a little bit of ricotta cheese to this. Now, the idea behind this is that it gives you a bit of a cheese to hold things together. Ricotta cheese doesn't have an overly strong flavor to us, I don't believe. So, like I said, we'll start with a little bit of the sauce on the bottom, layer it down. Not a ton, but just enough to keep things covered on the bottom. I'm not making this thick or saucy or anything like that, but it will make it all come together on the bottom. So just small amounts. All right. So then we're going to put down some of the peppers, a layer of those. Okay. Now they said the cheese, right? Cheese. This is where I'm going to come in with the sauce portion. Again, I want to cover the peppers specifically. Okay, that's good. That all set. Now I'm going to add a little bit of the ricotta here at this point. And this I can spread. So I'm not going to get a huge layer of this. I'm just going to spread it across like that. Spread it through what I'm cooking. One more big heap here for the edge. A little bit more there on this corner. And there. So that's in. Now, we'll go back with these peppers here. Finalize that. Go with some more cheese. Now they indicated 3 layers, so you have to remember that I did not use the full recipe, so I don't have as much. I have less peppers, and I have, like I said, only 2/3 of the filling. So, and I'm trying to just fill this. This is going to come out really nicely the way this is here. Now, you can take all of this, and this is a good point where I can get the juice from this to kind of flow down into this as well. I'm going to try to cover the top as much as I can with the remaining filling. Okay. I'm going to get all of that in there. And what's nice about that is the filling itself will now sink down inside and cover to be able to bubble up juice and all in there. Now some people at this point, they might add, that's pretty much it. I am going to cover the last bit with some more cheese like this. And I'm going to put it in the oven. I am cooking it at 350. Sometimes our oven stays a little low, so I may cook it at 370. But it'll go for about another 20 minutes. Let's see what we have here. Spray. It says about 35 minutes, so I'm going to go a lot longer than 20. Another 15 on that, but I'll check it. I'm going to put it on 20, then another 15, and see where it is. All right. So we have our Mexican rice here, which is just beautiful. My wife did a wonderful job with that. You can see, really nice. So that'll be the side of what we have from the casserole. Now we'll have to let this cool down for a minute or two. It's really hot. Always loving the bugs. Look at that. Make sure I get a good amount of that pepper. There you go. So get lots of the green pepper in there.